So, I have been going through my parts boxes and putting random dolls together, so I'm going to show you what I've done so far. I have more ideas, but I gotta stop at some point and take a breath and take pictures and do other things. But the first doll I'm going to show you is not from the parts boxes. It's my Fashionistas Zig and Zag, who I had painted over her eyes, I think last year, to make her side glance. And I had done it super sleek and stylized, and I decided that really wasn't suitable for this doll. So while I had the paint out for other dolls, I went ahead and gave her more paint in the eyes, so she has a little more liveliness in her eyeballs now. So, first doll, I might be rushing through some of these because some of the things that I've done, so you can know what I've done, this requires a lot of explanation. So we'll see how long this video ends up, because I have 11 more dolls here. Some of the things I did were just simply restoring heads to bodies they had been on in the past. The most straightforward of that was putting late 90s cool blue Barbie's head back on her original body. And I know this is her original body because the hands, okay, floppy gymnast knees. I know this is her specific original body because the hands have blue fingernail polish paint on them, and the left hand specifically has a silver thumb ring painted on. So this is back on her original body, and I did heat reshape the hands because I'm not fond of the straight, sort of unposed gymnast hands, but if you hold the hand over an electric burner for a little while until it just starts to get soft, you can quickly curve the hands over, and that just, I feel like that makes the hands look so much more natural on this body. Yes, there is the option of cutting the hands off completely, drilling your arms out and putting another hand in. One of the dolls you will see later has had that done, but I wanted to preserve her original nail polish and thumb ring paint, and also I don't have that many spare hands. So I got her back on her original body. I cut her hair a few years ago when I tried putting her on another body because she had a lot of dry Kanekalon hair. And I like short hair on dolls anyway. So, and then I dressed her in what I feel like is the same kind of aggressively casual style that Cool Blue Barbie originally had. So, that's that. And I did share the basic pattern for this shirt years ago too, so that will be, I had actually shared the pattern for both this bodysuit and this skirt. So I guess I'll put a link to my pattern roundup page on my sewing blog, so you can have some free doll sewing patterns if you're so inclined. Alright, and then it starts getting a little more complicated. So I had a Project MC Squared, Adrienne, never watched the show, don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. Don't really care that much, head that I had removed the hair from years ago because it had a weirdly low hairline, like it felt like it was in the middle of her forehead instead of where I would have put the hairline. So I'd removed the hair years ago. Well, I just cut it short, I hadn't actually taken it out of the head, so there was stubble. And then I put a live wig on that had heavy bangs. It was a long, straight black wig. So, and then I put her on a gymnast body again. I'd done the hand reshaping on. Flat foot, you know, like this one. It is possible to carve the feet down so they can wear modern, like curvy style flat shoes, and I have done that on a few dolls, and it is annoying. So it's one of the things I want to do more, but I don't do as often. So flat foot on gymnast doll makes me a little hesitant to use the body, but I decided, you know, in the past when I put this Project MC2 head on the body that it would be fine. So I did that, so she had the black wig, and I put her in a black turtleneck and a circle skirt that was a plaid with a black base and then some black loafers, and she was cute, but she didn't really grab me. So I broke the parts down and put them back in the body boxes. And then when I'm going through this round of just getting things out of the boxes last week or so, I put the head back on, possibly the same flat foot gymnast body with heat-shaped hands, possibly a different one. And I did not have that black live wig anymore. The only live wig I have currently with bangs is purple. So I thought I'd put the purple wig on her and make her, maybe a little more my style. But I still just wasn't feeling it, and I dressed her, and it was okay, but I have this problem that I've been trying to confront throughout this, I guess you'd call this whole thing a single project, even though it's multiple projects, where I'm trying to challenge myself to put clothes I like on dolls I maybe don't like so much. And curiously enough, I end up liking the doll a little better when I like the clothes better. So I dressed this doll and left her overnight, didn't really like what she's wearing, and decided that I would change her clothes into something, just do something ridiculous, things I liked but hadn't used often. And also I took a moment to, her original lip color was coral. Coral is a fine color, but it's a bit too warm for my general doll aesthetics. So I have a craft paint that is sheer pink with blue shimmer. So I painted that over her lips. And the coral still kind of shows through, but also there's pink and there's a blue shimmer, so there's more depth to her lips now. And then, like I said, I just put on ridiculous, fun clothes that I hadn't really been putting on other dolls, because I don't remember who I made this shirt for originally, but I think it was an older Barbie style body because it needs kind of wider shoulders and a narrower waist than most modern Barbie bodies have, and so the gymnast body was a good fit for it. So anyway, here she is. Ridiculous and fun. I still don't love the doll, but I like her a lot more than I did when I'd had her in the more basic, more restrained clothes. So I did make this shirt a while ago, and this skirt is from a vintage Dress Me doll. So those are generally sewn to the dolls, so I had to pick it apart at the waist and then I just put Velcro on the back. And she's wearing like layers of petticoats that I made. This is also from a vintage Dress Me doll that I just put a quickly sewed Velcro on the back to make it into a belt. And I sewed the stockings. Again, flat foot bodies have limited choice on shoes. I did have some of those gymnast Mary Janes that I could have put on her, but I wanted her to wear socks, so that made them too thick for the Mary Jane. So these are actually shoes from a 70s Ken-like Mattel doll, Young Sweethearts Michael, early articulated doll. Anyway, and this is held on with a straight pin through the wig and to the scalp because the wig is just a bit big. So, and I'm not super in love with her, but I feel like she is more fun in this ridiculous frou-frou outfit than I felt like she was in the more sleek mod outfit I'd had her in before, which is kind of surprising because I like mod style and more than frou-frou style, but so there she is. And I have two more dolls where I restored the heads to the bodies. And the reason these heads hadn't been on these bodies is because both the bodies needed hand upgrades. Well, not necessarily upgrades, replacements, because I didn't have the original hands. And at the time, the hand options I had weren't great and required drilling really big holes into the arms, which made them kind of unusable for other hand options once I got them. And on the second one of these, I had actually drilled too enthusiastically and managed to melt the arm, so it was all blobby. But I finally figured out what I could do to fix this was fill the arms with acetone glue, because I had made acetone glue, which is you melt hard plastic, polystyrene, ABS plastic, in acetone. And I just noticed that the camera is on the tripod crooked, so I'm sorry, you have to live with that. You melt hard plastic in acetone, and it turns into a sort of slurry goo that you can, don't touch with your fingers, you can spread onto other parts, and it makes a really good cement to bond the plastics together, because the acetone kind of melts the hard plastics it's attaching to, and then when the acetone is completely evaporated, you just have plastic, although it's very porous, but it can be backfilled and sanded if you want to take your time, which I don't. but if it's exposed. Anyway, so I had acetone goo mixed up for other things, and I wanted to use it all up. So if not, then it just kind of goes solid in the jar that I keep it in, because there's nothing you do to keep the acetone from evaporating, even if it's very, very slowly. So I realized, long way around here, I realized that I could backfill the arms. And I've been talking a lot more than usual lately, so forgive me. I could backfill the arms with acetone goo and then drill them out like they were solid plastic arms. So I did that with these dolls. And the first one is restoring a little pull-up head to a Dynamite Girl's body by Integrity Toys. And I've had this head bouncing around other bodies for years, just because the hand situation on this body was so bad, because I did not have the original hands. But I finally realized, like I said, I could finally remedy that. And she's wearing Hasbro Disney Descendants hands. And I want to say Hasbro because Mattel Disney Descendants should be appearing in stores in like the next few months. So whenever we talk about Disney Descendants dolls in the future, we're going to have to make the differentiation between Hasbro or Mattel. We have no idea how the Mattel dolls are going to look. They could be great, they could be disappointing. I'm getting sidetracked again. Anyway, so she has Disney Descendants by Hasbro hands, which are a decent color match to this very pale body, which is a decent color match to the pale little pull-up head. And if you know anything about little pull-up, you know her body's only like this big, but I like putting tiny little heads that are big on their body onto big bodies, so they're kind of proportional. Anyway, so I got her put back together, and I'm very happy. And I will say that like it took me, a couple tries to get her dressed. When I'm happy with a doll, I will put anything on them, knowing that I like the doll enough that I will change their clothes at some point in the future. So this is just the first thing I thought of putting on her, this little jumper that I made a while ago. And so happy this doll restored her. Wig selection could be better. This is a wig from a Madame Alexander doll. It's very dry and very coarse and very flyaway, but I do like the overall look. So that's one doll that I restored to a previous body that I had only taken off because of the hand situation. And then this is the other one. This is a DML Dragon Models Limited Eve 2.5 body with a cool girl head. And the DML hands are just bad design because of the way the wrist is designed and the plastic is designed, the way it plugs in. It's very easy to crack the plastic apart, and that's what had happened on this one. So I didn't want to use, actually I can only find one of her original hands, so the other hand may have fallen apart completely. So the hands I had that kind of matched the skin tone, for whatever reason I wanted to use at the time, had really big wrist pegs. And this is the body that when I drilled the arms out to be big enough to take those wrist pegs, it melted the arms ends enough that it got blobby and deformed. And then once I got the hands on the body, I didn't actually like the way they looked on the body. So for years, not happy with the body. Finally took the head off and tried it on other bodies. I mean, ideally she'd be on a Cool Girl 2.0 body, but I don't have any of those to spare. So I decided to try backfilling the arms with the acetone goo and drilling them, and these are Cool Girl style hands. I believe they're actually from the BBI Joanna Dark figure, which they're cast in plastic like they're gloves, but they're bare hand sculpts because they have fingernails on them, which just amuses me. And the other thing about a DML Eve 2.5 body is that the way DML makes the heads on their action figures is the neck is cast as one with the head. So the proper thing to do, people figured out like 20 years ago in the action figure forums, is you get a donor neck and you cut that off of the body, and then you take the head off of the 2.5 body and you cut the part of the neck off that head attached to, and then you glue somehow the donor neck onto the body. And I hadn't done that. What I had done, I had been lazy, I just cut the head off of the neck that was attached to the head, and then rigged some stuff up at the top of that to hold other heads on. And it didn't really look good, and it didn't really hold good. So I finally figured out what donor neck I could use. It's a body that actually I'd used for another custom that you'll see later. And the neck peg was actually broken off of this body, so I had to rig that back up. So I didn't feel too bad about cutting up the torso because other things had already been used. I still need to grind some off the bottom of it because it's a little thicker than the opening for this neck, so she can't really tilt her head in all directions, but she's still fairly able to tilt her head. And also, I just want to take a moment, bodies like this are why I don't like the made to move body, because she has all the articulation of a made to move body, but as you can see, her biceps are completely smooth, and I hear the child in the next room laughing at something. He's fine. If you can hear that, it sounds pained, but he's fine. Anyway, so you see this articulation like the made to move has done can be done in a more refined manner. It's just the way the made to move is put together is less labor intensive than the way these are put together, so that's why made to move is done the way they're done. Also, the thing about the DML body that is kind of, I don't know, annoying, funny, is the way they came up with to keep the plastic from wearing out and getting floppy is there's a ratchety joint, so they can be very noisy to pose. But anyway, I'm very happy to have her back together. Someday I might try rerouting her, but cool girl heads were very hard to begin with, and then over 20 years they've just gotten harder. So maybe I'll make a better wig for her, but for now I've gotten used to her in big floppy fake fur wigs. And she's obviously just wearing a Barbie Halloween dress. I don't know where the hat is from. It was a gift. And I did make the tights. Oh, and originally the feet on this body are flat, but I had used a MGA America's Next Top Model body, part of it for something else, and had the legs left over, and actually cut those feet off, and they slide perfectly onto the ankle peg for this body, so she's able to have heeled feet. And then these are Bradzilla's shoes, because it just amuses me to put MGA shoes from one line of dolls onto the feet from a different line of MGA dolls, because it's amazing how often they are actually completely compatible. And I'm rambling again, aren't I? How long has this been? Yeah, this is going to take a while. But that's what you're here for, right? So yes, I'm happy to have AJ back together. I might rig up some skin tone hands for her, or I might just have her wearing gloves constantly, because most of the cool girl hands that I have left are all glove hands. It's fine. It's a style. Alright, so those were the dolls with heads that I restored to bodies. Then we have some dolls who I just put together. Like Fashionista's Ice Cream Romper. I have had this head off and on bodies for years. And my issue with the head is she has the goddess sculpt, which I like. She has the Mattel yellow, not brown eyes, which I have issues with. She has pink hair, which I like, with burgundy hair that mostly covers the pink, which I like the burgundy, but I just feel like the pink should be more visible. So there are things about the doll I do and don't like. And for years, whenever I tried to dress her, I mean, she was in a dressing dolls video I did somewhat recently. And I ended up dressing her in brown and blue, which is not really my style at all. It's just, I just couldn't get around thinking of this doll fairly seriously. Even though, you know, she was originally wearing an ice cream print romper. So I had the head, and I wanted to get her out of the head box and on a body, and I once again reached for just the gymnast style body, and it's like, you know, no, I want to make an effort with this doll. I want to put her on more of a body. But I didn't want to put her on another old articulated fashionista's body like she'd been on before, which left in my body box options a pivotal ballerina body. You know, the pivotal torso and hands and all the pivotal sculpting is not the same as the old articulated fashionista sculpting. So that made it sort of a body she hadn't been on before. Now, because it was a ballerina body, the feet were on point, but when I had the stove burner on to reshape Cool Blue's hands, I decided I'd go ahead and reshape these on point Barbie feet, which I had done before with Alvin Ailey Barbie. I kind of just melted them. I mean, yes, I did get the toes into an angle so she can kind of wear many styles of Barbie shoes, but it's not pretty. She doesn't have toes anymore. She just has melt. But that's okay. That's fine. You know, like I said, I was having problems caring about this doll. So I decided to dress her. And I was going back toward the same kind of clothes that I wasn't that enthusiastic about. And I said, you know what, no, I'm going to put some effort into this doll. First thing I want to do is figure out what to do with her hair that would help expose the pink. So I went with Odango. And then, of course, when you do that with dolls, and there's always little bits that stick out in the back. So I got out some little butterfly clips and clipped those bits down. And then I got out some little ribbons and put those on the buns. And then I got out hair clips and put those on. And it's like, all right, I'm going as ridiculous as possible on this doll. And I dressed her all wildly and pinkly and purple with lots of accessories. And then I realized, you know what? I'm getting rid of those yellow eyes. I thought I would make them brown because, again, I make doll eyes brown. I think I've mentioned this before. But I was reaching for the brown and I saw the purple. So here she is with her purple eyes and her ridiculous hair with the pink now well exposed. And I am, again, being amused by the camera saying, yes, that is a face. And her ridiculous outfit. And even though, yes, she can wear some Barbie shoes, because I had so many layers on her feet with the tights, these are Monster High. I tried to see how large a doll they would fit. I'm not sure they will fit Monster High anymore. They might be too stretched out, but they fit on these long pivotal ballerina legs. So they're wearing them. And then these are old Barbie socks. So there's so many layers of cloth on her feet that I actually just went ahead and put her in Monster High shoes. It's, again, that pivotal on point, the ballerina on point angle. Sorry, I was trying to figure out what the child was doing. He's typing really fast. It's actually a little extreme for Monster High shoes, but, you know, it works. So, yeah, I finally figured out what to do with this doll to make me like her more than I had before. So I am happy that I kept hold of this head, and she is ridiculous and fun, which is not something I had really had with her before. It's weird how my brain gets into grooves and ruts and things like, I don't like this doll this much, therefore I'm not going to put good clothes on her. As if clothes can't be taken off at some point. So yeah, she was a challenge, but ended up being fun to dress. The next doll, a few years ago, Ethan thrifted a Hamilton design candy with all the original clothes gone, and someone had made this sincere but misguided dress for the doll out of crochet and quilting cotton, and I don't know if there was glue involved, but the doll had no hair. So it was probably polypropylene, because I can't imagine why anyone would have cut the hair. I mean, the hair was not just, it was, you know how you saw in the other video what happens when polypropylene degrades and the hair just falls off. There's a little bit of stubble, but it's not the kind of stubble you get when you actively cut the hair off. So this doll had no hair. And she was on the Hamilton Design Candy body, which is like the Superstar body, but lower quality and with bigger busts, so, and no articulation. So I took the head off the body years ago, and it was knocking around in the head box because, again, no hair, very hard vinyl, did not want to reroute it, and also the paint. It's mostly fine, it was mostly fine, except the pupils were not in the same spot in the eyes. And for whatever reason, this doll did not have light reflections painted. I found her on eBay. I don't remember what she's called, like Manhattan style or something. And she's supposed to have light reflections. A lot of them that I saw on eBay, well, I saw the two on eBay, their pupils were also not in the same place. But they're supposed to have light reflections. This doll didn't have light reflections. And also there was a gap between the upper eyeliner and the eye. So I filled in that gap. I happened to have a brown paint that matched perfectly. I evened up the pupils and I put on the light reflections. I took a high-heeled gymnast style body with a belly button, body, torso, cut the hands off, drilled the wrist out, put Integrity Toys hands on, which Integrity Toys hands, you know, improve any body they're on. I admit that. I won't pay for it, but if I have generous friends who share them with me, I thank them for that. And it matched the head. It was the only body I had that matched the head, so it was worth, I thought, putting the effort into not just heat reshape the hands, but to actually put on the articulated Integrity hands. And then I threw together a brushed yarn wig. This might actually be the first brushed yarn wig I made. I know it's not great, but I still am very happy with how she turned out. I mean, you can't really see what I did with her eyes, which is good because all I did with her eyes was what should have been done to begin with at the factory. The hair, they said the wig is not the greatest. I made it pretty fast and pretty rushed. It's not short, it's just tucked up inside. And I like the kind of bobbed look. And this is another doll where I did not put any thought into what she's wearing because I know I'm going to change her clothes so often that it's not like she'll be in this forever. Yes, this shirt does have working buttons. They are a pain to button, but nothing, there's nothing like the sleek, no bulk effect of actual buttons at scale, if you can stand to make and use them. So yes, I'm very happy with how she turned out. And now we get into the weird dolls. Mel had sent a box of doll parts, thank you, and in them were some odd things, which is fun, including a little blue deer head. It was blow molded plastic, pretty cheap, obviously had been a decoration of some sort, and had obviously had antlers at some point. That one was broken off and the other one was missing completely. The ears didn't really fit in the head, they were separate pieces. The mold line, the seam lines were horrible. So I cleaned up the seam lines somewhat. I worked on the ears and put them in with epoxy putty so that were smoother and better secured. I filled in the holes where the antlers had been with epoxy putty. And then the body I chose was an Ever After high body with the top of the neck was broken off. Had been for a long time. And, well, the top of the neck was broken off, and years ago I decided I was going to experiment with this. I had a weird off-brand Tinkerbell body, and that was the source, ended up being the source of her neck. And for whatever reason, I thought, I'm going to take the lower half of this Tinkerbell, who has like gymnast-style legs, and I'm going to attach these to this Ever After High torso. So you've got the little Ever After High torso, and then Barbie legs. And it was amusing. I put like a big La La Loopsy head on it, and then I made a dress that completely covered up the big hips. And like, okay, haha, this is funny. And then I took it back apart. So when I was looking for bodies for this deer head, I fell on that. Again, though, it had the big flat gymnast feet that I didn't really like that much. But at some point in time, Flo had sent me, Flo is also who sent the Integrity Toys hands. Flo had sent some Ever After High legs that had been cut off like above the knee, so it was like from just above the knee down. And I believe these are from the shorter Ever After High body. And when I held them up next to the gymnast style legs on this body, the widths, the lengths were exactly the same. So I cut these Tinkerbell legs off above the knees and used epoxy putty and acetone glue to graft these new lower legs on. So she's got super weird curvy. And then I did a lot of sanding. Not enough, but you're not going to look close enough to see that. And got the body ready, and then I had to figure out how to get this deer head on, because the deer head was never meant to go onto any body besides its original blow molded body. So there had been a length of the neck on. I cut the neck off, and then since the neck was already broken on the Ever After High body, what I did is I took a long screw and put some airline tubing plastic on it. Then I put the screw into the neck and secured it with more acetone glue. I had also wrapped the top of the screw with Teflon tape so things wouldn't stick to it. Then I put epoxy putty around the airline tubing. And when that cured, it could still spin because the airline tubing was just on the screw and the epoxy putty wasn't attached to anything. So when that cured, I put another layer of epoxy putty, and this I extended over the top of the screw, and I folded it over to kind of form a case around the screw, but not touching the screw. So when it cured, it could still spin. Then I made another blob of epoxy putty and put that just on top of this tower of epoxy putty, and then put the head down on top of that. And when that cured, I used epoxy putty to fill in the bottom of the head's neck opening and to kind of taper down to the neck, roughly. And then I airbrushed it all blue. And I wasn't sure how to paint the face. I went with super simple. And when I finished it, I didn't like it. And the first time I tried to dress it, it was the same problem I'd had before, because I didn't like the doll so much. I didn't like the clothes that I picked out for it. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to dress this doll as if I like it. And I did that, and she's better now. So I suppose you want to see what this abomination looks like. So here she is. Her head is very, very floppy, because again, it's just airline tubing on a screw. I had friends saying, you should put so much detail in the eye, eyes that big, you're just ready to put so much detail on. And I'm like, no, I want her to be like a deer, to have these weird non-human eyes. I mean, I could have gone in and put the horizontal deer pupils, but I wasn't going to be that weird. I gave her some spots, kind of because she's young, but kind of also to cover up where I epoxied in the holes for the antlers. So it was a challenge to dress her, because this part of her is Barbie size, and this part of her is Ever After High size. So that was part of the reason I'd had a problem dressing her initially, is I had this knit sheath skirt that I had made that did show off her curves, but it was dark gray, and instead of using that as a neutral to pair bright colors with, I just kind of paired more dull colors with it. And I said, like I said, no, I gotta do this more fun. So I just went with ridiculous that she does have ever after high feet. Because from here down, she's ever after high. From here to here, she's that Tinkerbell knockoff gymnast Barbie body. And from here to here, she's ever after high again. And then the blow molded deer head. Let me find that shoe. Yeah, the shoe's already scraping the paint off of her toes, even through the sock, but that's fine. So, I still don't love her, but she is a lot more fun than she seemed like she was initially. I mean, another issue I had with this doll is I put, for me, a lot of work into her. I generally don't put much work into my customs because I am more about ideas than refinement. But, so, I have a feeling a lot of other people will like her more than I do. And she will probably keep growing on me. Especially if I do ever make clothes just for her. Although now that I've made clothes that show off her curves, or she's not made clothes, now that she's wearing something that shows off her curves, I might be more inclined to dress her in things like the kind of doll dresses I made before that are close up here and then just a big skirt at the bottom, because the point has been made about how her body looks. I'm rambling. Anyway, like I said, I wasn't too thrilled with this one after I made it. The next one I adore. Starting with another broken Ever After High body. This one I had done the alteration on to make the neck more compatible with general doll heads. What I do is I cut the neck off, then I cut off a few millimeters. I melt those few millimeters in acetone to make acetone goo, so I have a color-matched plastic weld that I can use to put it back on, and then I turn the top of the neck around, so that weird bulge that Ever After High and Monster High heads have is now on the back of the neck, and then the front is relatively smooth. And that makes it work pretty well with a normal doll head. So I had done that to this one, and then the neck broke the way that most necks break, where the crossbar that holds the neck connector in just broke out. And it also took off a big chunk of the back of the neck, which would have been the front of the neck if I hadn't done the surgery. So I had this body laying around in the parts bin, and then I'm going through my head box, and I grab a Sunshine Family Mom head that I had opened up the neck years ago to put on a modern body with a tilt neck. And so I hold that head over this Ever After High neck, and they fit. Now I'm going to have to rig up a new neck connector, and it's going to be turn only because that's the easy thing to do. But that's fine because the Sunshine Family head was originally turn only. And I ended up with and I feel like my voice is just disappearing. I end up with a thick bamboo skewer. I drill the neck out, put the bamboo skewer in, put more acetone goo around, turn the bamboo skewer. I don't remember what I put on the bamboo skewer to make it bulky enough to hold the head in place, but I did. And then I put the head on the body, and it fits, and the proportions are right. I mean, I grabbed this head for this body because the Sunshine Family are smaller dolls. And so I get the head on the bottom. I'm not a huge fan of Sunshine Family. I don't like their staring little eyes. But I have in the past painted over the eyes several times, and that makes them more versatile. So I figured I would paint over the eyes. And I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do. I mean, I have the chance to make this doll really impressive. Even though impressive, like I said, is not what I do. I tend to do quick. I tend to do ideas. But since I didn't know what I was going to do with the eyes, I decided I'm just paint her mouth first. Now, another thing about the Sunshine Family sculpt is not only they have the staring little eyes, but their mouth is literally just a smile. They don't really have lips. So I decided I'm going to paint her lips. And they looked terrible, so I wiped them off. And I painted slightly smaller lips, and they still looked terrible, so I wiped them off. And I painted really small lips, like not even getting outside the curve of the smile. And it's like, yeah, okay, those look those will do. Those are good. And it was late at night, and I was getting ready to go to bed. So I decided to just put white over the eyes and a general eye shape just so I wouldn't have a chance to back out and not do it in the future. And I'm thinking, I have the chance to really paint her impressively. I can do something to make people see the potential of these dolls. And then I looked at her, and she looked like a Tootie. So I thought, you know what, forget potential. I'm going to paint her like Barbie's, somewhat infamously evil little sister from the late 60s or the early 70s, Tootie. I'm actually, now that I think about it, looking at the faces, now that I was thinking about it, I think the same person probably sculpted Tootie and Sunshine Family, because Tootie's mouth is kind of like the Sunshine Family's mouth. Anyway, so I painted this doll, copied Tootie. I'm not going to show you really close-up pictures of her ever because my paint application is not great, but I adore her. She is so wonderful, and the camera even recognizes this as a face. I'm impressed. She is so wonderful with Tootie's face covering up those eye chips. Now that's part of the reason she is so lumpy, is not just because of my paint application, but because I was painting over those physical plastic eye chips, which were also slightly melted by her head vinyl. So another thing, surprising thing about her is her hair is so nice. I mean, it's going to be nylon. Pretty much any Barbie before the mid-80s, pretty much any doll in general before the mid-80s is likely to have nylon hair. But this is just such a nice nylon fiber for a 70s doll. I'm surprised. You know, I'm not really generally a fan of blonde or blue eyes, but the blue eyes again were because I was mimicking Tootie. So between her hair and this face, and she actually fits really well on the Ever After High body. This is another doll that I just put in the first thing I found that seemed appealing, because I'm sure I will change her clothes a lot in the future. So another close-up of her, because I am just so happy with this doll. And I want to encourage people, if you ever get hold of a Sunshine Family doll and don't know what to do with it. I know some people like Sunshine Family dolls, and that's fine. Dolly diversity in all forms. It's great. But they can be fun to paint over too. At this point, I have painted completely over the eyes of 3 Sunshine Family dolls. I have one Sunshine Family doll that was sent to me with the eyes replaced by rhinestones, which I also painted over, just selectively. I have another Sunshine Family doll where the eye chips were broken out, and I actually just painted into the eye wells so they look like sparkly, shiny eyes from a distance. And then I have another Sunshine Family head. It was actually one of those bicentennial cuties, I forget what they were called, dolls that Mattel made using the Sunshine Family mom head that Tiffy altered the paint on. So I have, for someone who's not really fond of Sunshine Family, I have a large amount of experience with custom Sunshine Family dolls. But this is, I don't know if she's my absolute favorite or if that's still the Sunshine Family grandma who I gave pose doll style eyes to. I will have to take pictures of them together at some point. Anyway, so I'm done gushing about this doll. And we went to McKay's again last week. We don't usually go to McKay's this frequently, but my husband is clearing out his hobby stuff, so we've been going and selling the stuff. And I only got 3 dolls. 2 of them went into heads that I already had. The first one I'm going to show, though, I got another nude LOL OMG. This one turned out to be Spirit Queen, I think she's called. I am not familiar with OMGs. So I picked her up. I saw the spiderweb eye makeup, cool. I saw she still had her shoes, very cool. Her hair was dark pink on the sides, white in the center back, and green bangs. And I thought, well, that's a weird color combination, but whatever. I didn't realize those bangs weren't supposed to be green, and that the kid, probably who'd owned her before, had colored them in with marker. And they'd done an okay job. It was a little splotchy, but the problem was where the bangs were thatched, they had not been careful, and there was a little bit green back beyond. And the hair is nylon. It stains. That's an inherent property of nylon. It's called color scavenging. It's what nylon does. That makes nylon also the only petrochemical synthetic that really likes to be dyed or stained. So I decided I had some pink Rit. I would dye her hair. It should be enough to cover up the very pale green, and also I'm not super fond of the white. So if she ends up with two-tone pink hair, that's great. So I dyed her, and she did not end up with two-tone pink hair. She ended up with, I mean, okay, if you look really closely, you can see where the dyed hair is different from the original pink hair, but it is so close that at a glance it looks like that's all the same hair color, which makes me very happy. I didn't really swish and swirl the hair around in the dye enough. There's areas of it where it's lighter pink, but again, that's a thing that you're only going to see if I show you. She did have a paint rub on her lips. I mixed a pretty close color and repainted all of her lips because it wasn't perfect. But for $2, I'm pretty happy with this doll. I will eventually make a spiderwebby dress just for her. But for now, she wears this Monster High dress pretty well. So that was a nice find from McKay's. Then one of the heads that I had wanted to put on a body was a vintage Ken head. Not the very first Ken head with the flocked hair, because that didn't have any sculpted hair on it. This was the Ken head to come right after that, the sculpted buzz cut. None of the male bodies I had were right for this head. They were too big or just the completely wrong skin tone, because he has that kind of washed out, slightly dull vintage skin tone. So imagine my delight to go to McKay's and see a Hasbro Disney Descendants Carlos for $2, when Carlos has that same similar kind of washed out skin tone. Carlos also had molded half gloves on hands with no wrists. So I cut the hands off, I drilled them out. The first set of hands I put on him, the color match was pretty good. They were way too realistic action figure hands. So after a few days, I went back through my hands box and found some more vintage style hands. And, you know, I drilled the head out and made him fit on this modern tilt neck body. And I painted his eyes brown and his hair blue. I'd actually had a vintage Ken that I'd kind of done this to before, but it was a different color blue. And I'd painted the eyes brown by just painting over his original eyes so he was staring straight ahead. Doll Junk John recommended a side glance. It's like, yes, of course a side glance would be perfect. So here he is. And you see his vintage style action figure hands. And a ridiculous outfit, because Kens deserve ridiculous outfits too. Yes, I made the jacket. So I am very happy. I'm so happy that I just went to McKay's and found the perfect body for this head. It's smaller than Ken body, and it's the kind of vaguely washed out, not super bright skin tone. So I feel like there's really not a lot else I can say about him, because he was a pretty straightforward custom. And then we get to the last one. And this video is going to be an hour long, isn't it? Another head that Mel, I'm pretty sure it was Mel, had sent was a Lala Loopsy girl head. Now, Lala Loopsy girls were a more fashion doll version of Lala Loopsy. The heads were proportionally smaller, the bodies were longer, they had cloth clothing. And I had done a head swap in the past when Lala Loopsy girls were out and in thrift stores, putting it on a Star Darling's body, and the proportions were pretty good. The other thing about the Lala Loopsy girls is they had like plastic ribbon Rex lace hair, so it was kind of styleable. This head that Mel had sent, I believe it was Mel, if not, I'm sorry, had the lace, the hair had been mostly removed. There had been a bow decoration that was mostly cut off, and the neck peg from the original body was stuck inside this neck. So I removed all the hair stuff. I carved out the remains of the bow, and I heated the head up so we could get the neck peg out. Then I used the Dremel to enlarge the neck opening so it would fit on the other body that I found at McKay's, which was a rainbow high violet body with a broken hand. It obviously original owner had tried to pull the hand out of the wrist, and they just pulled the hand off the wrist peg. The wrist peg was still there with the crack in it. So I got that out easily, and I went through my body box, not the body box, the parts box, the hands box, the handbag, to figure out what other hands would fit in the rainbow high body, and amusingly, Star Darling hands fit. So, like I said, I'd used the Star Darling body for the Lala Loopsy Girl head before, so I was just amused that the Star Darling hands fit the rainbow high body. I did have to warm up the rainbow high wrist to get the hands in. What I'd said before about MGA stuff being the same across lines without you realizing it, I had tried Project MC squared hands in the rainbow high wrist, and they fit perfectly. The problem is they were the yellow garden gloves, which was not really a look I wanted. I was just curious to see if that was another instance of MGA compatibility across lines, and it was. So again, that was just amusing. So, yeah, so I had the head on the body, but she was still missing hair. So I thought very quickly, what could I do with this? And I remembered the thick bamboo skewers I'd used for the neck repair on this doll. And I just realized we matched, don't we? And so I cut 2 short lengths of the thick bamboo skewer and hot glued them into either of the holes that the original hair had been in. Then I got some cheap acrylic yarn and started wrapping it around those bamboo skewers. I've been talking for a long time, haven't I? You know, kind of twin bun style like this. And then once I got that nice and bulky, I took some more interesting yarn, a really thin polyester yarn that's like thin but textured, and I wrapped that so that the cheap acrylic yarn was no longer visible. Didn't wrap them symmetrically, but I dealt with that later. And I secured everything with hot glue in the back. So then I painted those white, just as a base coat. Then I painted them pink, and then I painted all of the hair pink. The original molded hair had been pink, but it was a different color pink, and just for consistency, I painted everything the same pink. And then I gave it all a top coat of pearl medium. And then I hot glued fake flowers all over it. And here she is. Oh yeah, this Lala Loopsy Girl originally also had blue buttons for the eyes, and I painted over those because I thought they looked weird. I mean, button eyes, I know, have reputations, and some people might think they look weird and creepy anyway, but I thought black buttons would be the best for this. So here she is. With my improvised yarn buns and her original sculpted yarn texture hair, all painted the same color and finish, and then with the flowers on to obscure the difference. And then I glued little things on, like this little spray of buds here and the button here, which buttons were Cosmo Moore's suggestion, so that helped me figure out, because this bun actually turned out perfect, nice and flat and concave on the end, whereas this one was kind of pointier, so I needed to do something to obscure / emphasize the differences, to acknowledge that, yeah, I know it's different. So So I'm very happy with how this one turned out. My favorite is still her. Because I noticed a long time ago when I don't like a head sculpt, I am way more likely to experiment on it. And sometimes the experiments don't work, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, I didn't like the head sculpt anyway. But when the experiments do work, it's because I didn't have a reason to hold back on that head sculpt. And I think that's what happened here. So yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last week or so. The deer doll took longer than a week, but I didn't work on her all at once. She was an off and on thing. Yeah, so I have more dolls that I want to do stuff with in the future, and I will make a video about that. But right now, I want to get these dolls photographed and put away. I actually rearranged a bunch of boxes so I have space to put them away. And then I'm going to sew more clothes for me, because I actually haven't done that for a while, and I really want to. So, thanks for watching. I almost used Look Mom No Computer's catchphrase of "don't be afraid to try it." But that does apply to dolls too, it's just without the electricity. Anyway, have fun with your dolls. I hope this video was at least mildly entertaining, despite being nearly an hour long of me just rambling at the camera and showing you dolls every once in a while. Anyway, thank you for watching. Have a good day.